How's it going, YouTube? Coming in today with another video, and today, guys, what the bring to you is going to be post Suda. This is going to be your one-stop shop for all the things you need to know about the new format, and this is going to be legal for YCS Orlando, so if you are going to Florida, this is going to be very important for your testing. If you haven't already subscribed, it's New Year's Eve. Drop as many subs as you can. Let's start this year off right, and let's hit 23,000 before the new year. I would appreciate it so much. Every day I'm going closer to my goal of streaming full-time and content full-time. I would love to be able to do that. The absolute stream of content lately has been fantastic. I love doing content, and I really do hope that today's post-Suda video helps you as much as possible in your testing. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors or Imperium duels to Dragonshield, Gem, Cloud, RW, or Grimoire, definitely go ahead and check them all out down below in the description. Also, if you haven't started using my TCGPlayer link, use the link down below. Costs nothing to you, only supports the channel, and it really does help me a lot. Now, without further ado, let's hop right on into a replay about Mitsurugi. So I found my own 2-card combo that you can do with Ryzeal and Mitsurugi. I really do like this archetype a lot. I don't really know if it's going to be enough right off the rip, but these 2 cards end on like 10 plus interruptions. It's kind of insane, and it bridges every engine. It's Ryzeal, Fiendsmith, Mitsurugi, and you'll see what I mean here. So we're going to be doing the ice into the X to grab the sword, which is pretty standard, but now we're going to be making King of the Feral Imps. So what we're going to be doing is detaching the search, and then we're going to chain prayers here, which is kind of like a Kaiman-like effect, where you can tribute a reptile, and then on resolution, if you tribute a monster as well. So it's like the in-sequence effect. It also reminds me of like Glamour. So you're allowed to add a Mitsurugi monster, but if you tributed a monster for this, you can also take 800 damage and then special summon Mitsurugi from your hand or graveyard. Cannot attack directly, but that's not really the biggest point here. So we're going to go ahead, detach, and then chain prayers to go ahead and get rid of the king. Summon out the Saji, and then add the Ameno. These cards are really strong, and you're going to see why here. So, on summon of the Saji, if it's normal summon or tributed, you can add a Mitsurugi spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to add the Ritual spell. Now, this is the first Ritual deck that I've ever seen be able to play a ton of non-engine and like other engines and be completely self-sufficient. This deck is insane because of this Ritual spell. Now, you can activate both of these effects, which is kind of crazy, in one turn, but only once that turn for both effects. The first one says Ritual summon a reptile ritual from your deck by attributing monsters from your hand or field. Excellent, no problem. Summons from deck, right? The other one is Shaddoll Fusion. Ritual summon a ritual reptile monster from your hand by attributing up to 2 reptiles from your hand, deck, or field to equal the level. Insane. So you can summon one from deck, and then you can tutor from deck as well. So like, oh my god. Now you have this one, and it's the same for both of the rituals. If this card is tributed, you can add a Mitsurugi card, then special summon this card, which is actually absurd. And again, this is for both rituals that they allow you to do that. So this one, it's a on summon Regeki, which is already crazy. And it's every time this card is special summoned. And then when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can activate this effect once per turn. Your opponent can discard 1 card, or that effect is negated. So you'll see how many interruptions we get on our end board just because of all of this going on. So the next thing we're going to do here is activate our ritual spell, and we're going to be dumping 2 to summon out our new ritual. So what we're going to be dumping is the Kusanagi, and then the Night Sword Serpent, which you've seen me play before in tier. So this card is just going to reborn itself, which is fantastic. It's a great monster. I love this card. And then this one's going to, on normal, special, or being tributed, so it's being tributed from deck, you can target a Mitsurugi card in your grave or banishment and add it to your hand. So that's where we just recur our ritual spell here, which is great. So we're going to go ahead and do just that and summon out our Night Sword Serpent. Okay, and then we're going to activate our ritual spell here to go ahead and get rid of our ritual, summon out the other ritual, which if your opponent special summons a monster, you can target a reptile in your grave and special summon it. So boom, you have your board wipe and your discard interruption. And then, of course, this also has the same clause of if it's tributed, you can add a Mitsurugi card and special summon this card. So pretty nice. That's why Bishals are going to be really huge this format, because you want to be able to banish things like Amino. There's still going to be things like Caesar on the board. Today was the very first time I've read any of the Mitsurugi cards, and I found this combo in like 5 minutes. So it's really solid. And again, it's just a 2-card combo, so nothing too crazy. And it also could be like the Prayers and Bonfire as well too. So there's a couple different ways you could go about it. But so right now we have 2 4s on the board. And we're going to bring back our other monster here. And since we're bringing back our other monster, we get to add a Mitsurugi card. So that means we're going to add the trap card. When your opponent activates a card or effect, tribute a level 5 or higher reptile, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. You also have the secondary effect, which is you can banish this card from your grave, target a reptile in your grave, special summon it, and then tribute another monster you control. So at any point in time, you can go ahead and just summon this back out for the most part. This card is only 1 effect, and 1 effect only in a turn, so you got to keep that in mind as well. But this card is very, very strong, especially because it's kind of like Paradise in a way too, except you're not just like sending a card, you're nuking their board, right? So pretty nice, and it's another really good interruption. But moving on from that, we're going to go into Exoton, and then now this is just our Fiendsmith combo. So that's pretty cool too. Now we're just going to be checking for a lot of different things. What I really do like is that we summon this out here. So before I keep going with the sword effect after we make the Caesar, that's all just very standard, so just blowing over that. But what's cool about this is just chilling on our board. And even if we get nibbed going for Caesar, this card still comes back because it gets tributed. And then we get to add another Prayer to our hand. So that's kind of crazy because Prayer lets you summon from grave as well. So it's really good follow-up, and that's one thing where you can even like grab another Prayer and then just set it for next turn. So that's really cool, which allows us to have another interruption. So even if we get nibbed, this just comes back, and we're like, okay. And at that point, you're going to be getting Prayer anyway, so you could just link off the token and the ritual and just summon like an IP, and you can just keep going from there, because we still have sword in hand. And so now we're just summoning out swords, summoning out ice by pitching away the ritual, and then we're going to be going for duo, go for node, cross, the very standard combo here for Ryzeal. Go ahead and get rid of this. Now, before you make the detonator, you want to make sure that you just activate cross first, but that's neither here nor there. Go ahead and throw cross down, draw a card, and then we have our trap. So, we have double summon interruption by Caesar. We have our cross negate. We have 4 other cards in hand because this was a 2-card combo. And we also have our trap card. We have multiple pops with Detonator, which is already crazy. We have this card, which allows us to summon this card back, and we also will have a Prayer here, hypothetically, if we actually had to get rid of this, right? So that's another way to get back to this, but otherwise, we still get back to this regardless. We also have Paradise set up, so it's a lot, even cross negate. So, like, this end board is wild, and again, it didn't take much to do it. Obviously, there's going to be hand traps thrown at you and whatnot, but that's 3 different pushes through a board, and they're all at separate times. So you can check for nib in multiple spots, which is kind of crazy, and it makes this deck very scary. And I'll show you the ratios on this in just a moment. So this deck list is as consistent as I could get it. My magic number for deck building has been 43 for a while now. I love 43. It's just the perfect number for me. But this is my list currently for Mitsurugi Ryzeal. I have 3 Ash, 3 Fua, 3 Nib, Bishals with Lubellion and Regained. This has been the most consistent ratio for me as well in forms of hand traps. I do think that if a lot of people are on Lubellion, that it's going to be really good to play Droll. That's usually just on the side, because if you play against like Malice, Droll's not that good. The Ryzeal package is slimmed down a little bit, but it's pretty standard, pretty close to just being a regular number for the actual core. But for the Mitsurugi cards, I only play 1-in-1. You really just want to see this. You don't really want to see these. These cards don't do anything on their own. If you're playing like a heavy reptile deck, then they can do more. But since you're not, you need to see this. So this is very important, especially if you can make a rank 4. And there's many ways in this deck to make a rank 4. So if you see this and you make a Feral Imp, then you know that you're going to be doing very well. Especially even if they try to like Imperm you on Feral Imp. Oh, they just lose. Like, it's kind of crazy. So that's one thing where you want to make sure that you're playing 3 of this, 1 of the ritual spell, 1 of the trap card, and just 1 of all the monsters. And then, of course, the Night Sword Serpent. You don't want to go too much on these cards because, like, they're good as like a side engine, but you don't want to make them the main focus by any means, because again, we're already playing so many different engines on the deck, but it allows you to be able to push through many different ways. And that's why you play different cards like Fiendsmith and Ryzeal, so you don't just auto lose to cards like D-Barrier, right? Like you have other things that you can do, which is always going to be very important. And then in the extra deck, of course, is just super tight as far as like what you want to play and what you're allowed to play. The one flex spot is usually like just this right here, the King of the Feral Imps, because this is usually where Moon's at. But right now it's Feral Imp because we're playing the Mitsurugi package. Everything else is pretty standard. It's really hard to cut cards. If you're going to cut anything, people are even leaning toward like SP, but like that's tough. You could cut like Baguska, but that's tough, right? Like then you get like Shifter and you're like, wow, what do I do? And that sucks. So definitely a very interesting scenario to be in, but this is the deck list that I'm playing. I'll leave it down below in the description, and let's hop right on into the rest of the information. So this is Twins of the Eclipse. This card's very strong as well. I do like this card a lot. If this card's sent to the graveyard, you can target 2 other rank 4 or lower monsters that are Xyzs in your graveyard, special summon 1, and then put the other one underneath. What's crazy about this is that you can go first with cards like Econ or Droplet, and then you can just set them and pass to your opponent when you have this under a detonator. If they imperm your detonator, or if they put you in a weird spot where they like start draining your detonator, you can use Econ or like Droplet to send it to the grave, steal their monster, or like negate their monster, and then Twins will trigger in the graveyard to go ahead and reborn the detonator, attaching the duo drive, and then detonator will get a new material, which you usually just throw the Twins of the Eclipse back underneath it anyway. So you get a lot of value and multiple detonators in a turn. You also could, in a late game scenario, use X to just dump Twin, and then Twin will trigger in the grave immediately, and then you'll get your detonator back. So it's a lot better for the grind game as well. I cannot stress enough that Bell and Bishals are going to be extremely important post Suda. Now for the new Malcharmy, I think this card is going to be a tech option, honestly. It's really good against Malice, and it's like okay against the Fiendsmith cards. Definitely one of the weaker ones. I think it's going to be really good for some events, but I think it's on par with Purlia right now, where it's like pretty mid. It's okay. It's going to do something. Will it do a lot of something? Probably not, but it's going to be around. Fua's going to be around. It's the best one by far, but this one will be interesting, and I don't think that you actually have to just like throw all your money at getting this as a playset for the new format. It's okay, but you'll be fine without it. What more could you ask for in Mermail support? I don't like Mermail. I really don't think that it's that good of a deck, but now that I've seen this card's kind of absurd. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send for cost an Atlantean or a Mermail from your deck to the grave, target a card your opponent controls, and return it to the hand. And the way that you summon this is by sending another water monster from your hand or face of field to the graveyard. So you get multiple triggers of your water cards. Card's already a 7. Card is very, very strong. There's a couple other things the deck has going for it right now, but if anything, this card is a bit absurd, and if you play against water, you're going to want to make sure that you have a steady game plan. Now, is the new Azumina cards good for White Forest, and is White Forest going to be a contender? Probably not. I'm just going to say that out loud. Probably not. The deck's not very good. Did they get a lot of very cool new cards? Absolutely. Being able to get a Sinful Spoil card off of the Azumina Elzat, if it's used as synchro material, very cool. Being able to have that as a fusion as well, absolutely very cool. The Trap card, pretty crazy. Target cards in the field up to the number of fusion and synchro monsters, Fiend, Illusion, Spellcaster you control and in your graveyard, and then return them to the hand. And then this can also be reset for all the effects. So, very strong card. Very, very strong card. They also got Saint Azumina. This card's absurd. If it was fusion summon this turn, quick effect, summon an Azumina monster from your deck or extra deck for free. So, very cool, and it has a lot of promise moving forward. I just do not think that this deck in particular is going to be able to keep up with what we have now in the form of Fiendsmith Ryzeal, Mitsurugi Ryzeal, Malice. There's some shifter going on right now, and then there's also just like multiple non-engine going on as well. And a deck like this, I just feel afraid that if you were to bring it to a bigger event, that it's just not going to be able to take on the non-engine like the other decks can. It also gets just absolutely blown out by the fact that everyone's maining Bishals, and Bell is also starting to show up pretty prevalent. So not the best scenario for this deck to do well. Maybe you'll get some success with it, but I'm not a fan. And then I'm not going to say much. Hero's still bad. It's still not a good deck. I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't lose to Nibiru. That's fine. That's cool. Like, the deck doesn't do well. But so this is definitely going to be a format where there's a very few good deck options, and then there's, like, you might get their deck options right now. But Ryzeal Fiendsmith, Ryzeal variants, Malice, I cannot say that I've had more fun in a long time since tier format, really, with a deck. And playing the Fiendsmith Ryzeal deck has been an absolute blast, and I'm very excited to bring it to events. So definitely a very positive format, a very cool format, and I'm definitely interested to see how things go moving forward. But again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Join my Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and join my Discord if you haven't already. But I hope that you all have a wonderful night, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.